Hello, everybody. Really quick, just jumping on here to do a microphone test. Make sure that my clip-on microphone that Radio Rick sent me is working okay. I guess it is. Sounds good. It looks like it's being picked up okay. So, just quickly checking that, making sure it works. I'll be on in about 3.5 hours with tonight's nightly update. Just be aware, a new series of 3.0 earthquakes and 4, starting out at 4, striking in central Italy right now. Also, west coast of the United States, 6.5 earthquake, largest earthquake of the year in the United States, striking here. And we're watching in the Midwest for a potential of a large earthquake to strike upwards of the equal to what we see on the west coast. And that goes up to 6.5. Now I'm thinking of just a little bit less than that, but it's better to err on the side of caution. Be on watch. We've seen it in the past. The same size earthquakes that strike on the west coast, sometimes, most of the time, strike in the Midwest within a few days. So, 48 hours, we're watching in Oklahoma for possible large activity. It's going to pan out. Whether or not it happens, it's on me. I'm issuing the warning, so if you guys repeat it, again, the reason we've seen it happen before is because pressure transfers across the plate. We've seen this happen multiple times. When a large earthquake strikes on the west coast, a large earthquake strikes in the Midwest a couple days later. And the last time this happened, a 5.8 struck in this exact spot where a 6.5 is, and the next day, a 5.8 struck in western Oklahoma. We've seen it happen with 4s, we've seen it happen with 5s, and now here we are with 6. Is it going to maintain into a 6 or go right below a 6? Regardless, it'll be a larger amount of activity. Check it out. Look what struck in Oklahoma in the last 48 hours. Above 2.5. Notice anything? No earthquakes in Oklahoma above 2.5 in the last 48 hours. That's abnormal with this amount of movement now striking on the west coast. So, they're under pressure, which means there should be a release. Don't be alarmed. You will be alarmed if you're not prepared and you're not expecting it. So, get the warning out now to everybody in the Midwest. We're talking about central Oklahoma going to western border. We're talking, let's see, I guess that's at the panhandle of Oklahoma. Zoom in on it really close here. Western central Oklahoma near the panhandle. We're watching for a possible large release within the next 48 hours. Why? Pressure transfers right across the edge of the craton, guys. And it should excite things all the way across the plate. Oklahoma's not the only spot. But Oklahoma's the standout spot that's been hit before, which is why I'm issuing the warning now for Oklahoma. And the other areas in between will be filled in as well, all the way over to the East Coast. Additionally, the largest earthquake of the year, globally speaking, struck today, and that was at 8.0. They downgraded it, upgraded it, downgraded it, upgraded it. If you go check the station list, many stations showing above 8. So we're taking it, I'm calling it an 8 with the amount of movement that happened with the buoys. The buoys went into motion all the way around the entire plate, up from Alaska, down to Fiji, over to Japan, Philippines. The whole perimeter of the Pacific showed movement at the buoys. And that is tremendous because that actually happened within an hour. So the large earthquake struck. Then within the hour, every buoy all the way from Alaska down to Fiji was in motion. Now, what does that mean? It means slight wave motion, slight reverberation happening to a point where it disturbs the buoys along the coast where all the plate boundaries are. That's huge. Huge. And I'm not exaggerating. I don't normally talk like this in my updates, guys. This is huge. To see that kind of movement. You know, I'm tempted to go take a look and just see if it's still in motion. I haven't checked in the last couple hours. Let's just go ahead and do that real time here on the stream with you guys looking. The way we check, we go to the National Data Buoy Center, NDBC, and you'll already see I've got it up here from looking earlier. Now, it started with no motion. Now, oh yeah, look, take a look, guys. Take a look at the map now. This is not a false error. This is not an erroneous reading. These are at least 20 different stations everywhere around the entire perimeter of the Pacific. Now, this one station off the coast of California is from the 6.5 that struck there. but take a look at it. Now, look, there wasn't a tsunami that generated this. This is the plate boundary around the perimeter of, again, from Alaska all the way down to Japan. You see how these are red? That means they're not on or not reporting. But if they were reporting, you would see these three lit up as well, and this fourth one down here, proving that the whole West Pacific has been displaced at the moment over the past several hours. What does this mean overall? Well, guys, we're going to see compensation over to the east. You can imagine if the whole plate moved around for at least a 10,000 mile radius around this. And we can imagine the east side is going to move equally over on the eastern side of the Pacific. Not just there, but spreading out across each plate. North America, Central America, South America, and going over through Asia into Europe. Look, if the plate is moving this much all the way across, the areas next to it are going to move. That's Asia. And the areas east of it, or next to it, over to the east, are also going to move. And that's going to put us back into North America. It's also going to put us back over here into Europe in the next few days. The whole plate is in flux right now. Just as we told you to watch for, the reason this all happened, we have to go back several days. We have to go back and take a look at the last week's worth of earthquakes. Now you see all these deep earthquakes raised high off the globe? These deep earthquakes lead to shallower, larger earthquakes. And look what's in between our deep earthquakes. Obviously, a very large earthquake, the largest of the year. Okay, the only other large earthquake like this was the 7.8 that struck over in Ecuador. So, scaling it back just a little bit, look at the earthquake that struck in between the other zones. 6.5, 100 people or more killed in Indonesia 2 days ago. Again, equidistantly spaced from our deep earthquakes that are causing all of this movement to begin with. This is plate boundary movement. This isn't just a fault zone. It's not just like an area that's normally prone. Obviously it is, but it's the plate boundary that's in flux. Why is the plate boundary in flux? Well, pressure comes up from down below and it pushes up above and causes these larger earthquakes. Again, 6.3 leading to a 6.5 to 7.0. Some stations reporting 7 here. 100 people killed. I dare say it's a bigger than 6.5. Then also the 8.0 that struck here today. All following our deep movement. Now I would like to give a huge shout out to MC Player and the people who are helping MC Player in chat room put together our feeds that give us a global view of what's going on. I want to draw your attention to the USGS last 30-day feed, the last month. And we're only going to look at 4.5 plus right now. You guys need to see this. This is all of our pretty much larger deep earthquakes and all of our shallower movement. I only want you to look at the earthquakes raised high off the globe. Okay? And you can see the predominance of our deep movement. This is, I told you guys before, this is more than I'd ever seen deep earthquake-wise in such a short amount of time, in a couple weeks. And look what happened north of New Zealand. Now I'm going to turn this up so we get only the larger earthquakes. We're going to look at the 6.0s and greater. Let's make sure that's correct. A little bit. There we go. Well, this is going to show us 5.9 and greater because some of the 6s were downgraded. But, okay, take a look at our 7s, first of all. Do you notice anything? Okay, so 2 spots in the West Pacific move it at 7 to 8.0, and 1 spot corresponding over in the East Pacific with equidistantly spaced earthquakes. And look where the earthquake struck. Okay, right, we have our arrows pointing to more of these locations than not. It's not just random chance either. So if you take a look at the spreading out of earthquakes over the last month, I'd say it's pretty obvious. Okay, so it's obvious which way the earthquakes progress. We see excess activity in the West Pacific, and then we see movement over to the west, off of that, and over to the east, corresponding compensating. Last month. And this is actually a noteworthy increase. Now, we would expect to see several 5s, 6s, and a few 7s. But these 7s now are increasing along the plate boundaries, which I would dare say it actually means something here. We're talking about excess activity spreading out from these deep earthquakes. And then take it down a notch, and you'll see all of our deep earthquakes. The deep earthquakes lead to shallower, larger movement. And I think that pretty much sums up my case. Oh, you guys have seen it. You knew to watch. The reason you knew to watch the coast of California, oh, look at this little guy. He's really curious. Okay, well, the reason we all chose to watch isn't because of luck, isn't because of some kind of random chance of dart throwing. The reason we were watching off the coast of California at Eureka, and the reason we were watching over here in the West Pacific in between our deep earthquakes, is because we know pressure transfers across the areas, and that's why we have the arrows on the map. Follow the arrows. It's like now we're watching a giant train of pressure travel down the tracks, and it's going to transfer out in these directions. And again, it goes in all the directions. It's not a 50-50 as to whether or not we're going to get struck on both sides when these deep earthquakes strike. It's a 100% chance both sides are going to be struck on each side of these deep earthquakes whenever they occur. So that's why we issued the warning last night. That's why we talked about it all this week. With this amount of movement, 10,000 miles across, from Fiji to the Middle East, deep earthquakes. And in between there, the two largest earthquakes of the bunch, 100 people dead and an 8.0 earthquake. 100 people dead at the 6.5, 7.0 location, and who knows what kind of damage has occurred off this 8. So you now know the basic principles. I've explained them to you over and over again, and I'll do it again tonight at 10 p.m. We will go over this fully at 10 p.m. with Google Earth open, and probably spend some more time looking up the fracking earthquakes and where we warn in Oklahoma, because we're worried in Oklahoma for a larger release. And, you know, it's pretty obvious. Take a look at the U.S. Okay, take a look at the U.S. Look how the earthquakes start on the West Coast and go over to the Midwest. It doesn't stop there. It goes up to the East Coast, which I can show you. We now have a Canadian feed, thanks to MC Player. And this is the last 30 days, but here's the last week's. Okay, so we have microquakes happening up to the northeast now, not just by chance. We talked about this before. We talked about Maine-New Brunswick border, and this is the Maine-New Brunswick border. The reason the Maine-New Brunswick border moving slightly is because of the other activity that struck over the last 5 to 7 days. It's going to all pick back up. Over the next few days, you're going to see this dramatically increase in the northeast, and up here in Canada, you're going to see the swarms pop off more and more. These are going to turn into stacks of earthquakes in the next few days, all leading towards new activity that's going to strike off the West Coast again going into next week. But I'm getting way ahead of myself. First, the Midwest is going to be struck. Okay? But don't kid yourself, guys. This 8 that just struck is going to excite things up for the next, I don't know, let's at least put it on the next 5 days. That this is on top of everything else. This new 8 that struck. Compensation movement's going to occur off this 8. And that tops out all the others. I mean, we're looking at, there was already the 7 that just, or 6.5, whatever, that just struck in Indonesia that killed 100 people. And I told you, we weren't done yet. Well, now, again, it's going to carry on. You're going to see this bounce over to the east. You're going to see it go over to the East Pacific. We're watching south of El Salvador. We're watching near the Colombia coast. If you know where El Salvador is, let me show you. It's in Central America here. So we're basically watching the southern portion of Central America where there aren't any earthquakes. So El Salvador is here. Hopefully you can see that where my mouse is. You guys see this here? And then going down to the south, here's the Galapagos, here's Ecuador, and coast of Colombia in between there. So it's kind of a pretty vast distance. I wouldn't normally warn this large of an area, but because of the potential of it being a very large earthquake, we do have to warn Central America, South Central America, most likely again south of El Salvador and north of Colombia, going out to the sea. So, 3 days, 72 hours at the most, and after 72 hours, if nothing hits or if it's smaller than expected, we will issue a correction and look into why that's, why that occurred. So, don't get ahead of myself on that. Watch for it. Wait for it. If it doesn't strike within 72, of course, you can let your thumb up and go back to your business and not watch for it. And I'll be looking at it. You don't have to. Okay, so word up to my people. How many people are in here right now? 762. Get the word out that I'll be on at 10 p.m. Central Time. So, 3.5 hours I'll be on, and I'll be doing an hour-long update. Full update everywhere on the planet, telling you the areas to watch, issuing the forecast again just to reiterate the forecast, And yeah, we're going to be talking about this. And we'll see if there's any video or anything that's coming in by then out of this area. But it's very sparsely populated in this particular area where the 8 struck. That's the only saving grace. But the areas that are going to get hit next are heavily populated, like Japan, central Japan. It's going to get hit. And over here to the west, over towards Europe, you're going to be hit within 48 hours because of this large movement. West coast of the U.S., you're going to get hit again because of this 8. It's going to be a double whammy. What's going to happen here in the U.S.? Get this. This 6 is already pushing to the east. It's going to cause a new round of activity in Oklahoma. We hope it stays smaller, but the potential for it to go up to 5.9, 6.1, 2, I wouldn't say a full 6.5 in the Midwest, but it could happen. We've seen equal size earthquakes strike before. But then we're going to see another earthquake strike on the West Coast. And it should be noteworthy in size, at least in the 6.0 range. So this isn't all that's, this isn't done. There's a new 8 that just kicked things off for the next several days. So I'll be covering this all tonight at 10 p.m. And you guys can get your warnings out to the people on the West Coast. Say, hey, look, the 6.5 today is not all she wrote. We're actually going to get more. And they'll say, why? And you'll say, because over here in the West Pacific, there was just an 8, and it's going to press over here to the East Pacific and cause large earthquakes all the way down throughout Central America and re-increase things up the West Coast of the U.S. So now is the time to get the warning out to the people. Let them know it's all going down right now, and it's all based upon this round of deep earthquakes that happened over the past few days that really we made note of. We talked about it. We were looking for it, said it was going to happen this week, and now here it is. So don't be scared. Do not be scared. Be prepared. And being prepared means looking at what's going on and seeing how the areas are hit before you. So whatever area you're in right now on the planet, I don't know where you are. There's a lot of people listening right now. Look upstream from where you're at. Follow the arrows back, and you'll see if there's something coming your way. This takes the mystery out of it. This takes the dynamic, the fear factor out of it. It really does. When you can know which way the pressure transfers, you know when there's an 8 upstream from you that downstream, follow the arrows downstream, those areas are going to be excited next, and it's going to be an extreme increase from where we were, because we're going up a whole notch from anything that we saw before. So the largest push that we had before was what, a 7-something? Mid-7? Now we're at an upper 7 to 8. So we have an 8 pushing behind it all. We have a round of deep earthquakes that kicked it all off. Put those two things together, it lets you know the areas that are kind of silent right now or kind of quiet, kind of peaceful, that's going to change. And they can know when to watch for it. You know it'll all happen within 72 hours. Within 72 hours, this pressure will fan out. Follow the roadmap out towards Europe and over towards the United States and Central America. It's amazing. It's about to happen again. Hopefully people will get wise to it this time, that the pressure is transferring, and start to make appropriate preparations and warnings getting out in time to the people who need it. Okay, so that's all I've got for you, and I'm going to turn back off my display capture so you can see just the main screen. And we'll put some music back on. We'll be doing the update tonight at 10 p.m. and that's Central Time. So wherever you are around the planet, morning, afternoon, evening, or night, try to tune in. And if not, I'll save it as a video on my channel. So whenever you get around to it, you can watch. And it'll be saved on my channel tonight after 10 p.m. Peace out, guys. My cat here, I don't know if you can see him. He has officially passed out. This is the boy cat. Has officially passed out here. I don't know if we'll be able to... There he is. Are you asleep? All right, I think the cat has taken a tranquilizer or something because he is Garfield all the way. Okay, so I'll be back on in a little while. Of course, keep hope alive and always watch. And, I try to be here as much as possible. just so I can be here with you guys. And if I'm not in the room when something strikes, I am listening from downstairs or out in the, in the basement or wherever I am. I've got the speakers turned up to listen. And if I hear anything ding over 6, you can bet, like a fireman, I'll be running and sliding down this pole and getting in here on the chair, okay? All right, I'll be back.